Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the first Championship Sunday of the summer season. I'm Healingstad, and I will be hosting for you. Joining me, we have Benruki, Super Tees, and Zico. And we're on the third game of the day here for Europe, with 3 teams remaining, 2 series remaining before we decide our first European champion. Then we'll move on to that North American bracket. But here we have the lower final. No more second chances for these teams. Losers will now be eliminated. And the next series is one that we already saw on Friday, Zico, between Wildcard Gaming and Change My Mind.
Yeah, and last time around, of course, Change My Mind was the team that knocked Wildcard Gaming down to the lower bracket. But Wildcard Gaming, judging by their series that they played earlier today, and of course their series against the Chalky Milkmen, they looked like they were just bouncing back immediately off of that loss. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with. You know, the Windwalker DK has been doing a lot of work for Wildcard Gaming just in general throughout the year. I expect to see them go with that. And of course, if the previous series was any kind of hint, I think we're going to be seeing some more Rogue Shadow Priest here from Change My Mind.
It's something we'll have to see, as this is the blind pick. Neither team knows just yet, neither do we, what these teams are locking in. It is going to be the Mage Elemental Restoration Druid here. Change My Mind also get off the Rogue Mage Druid.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. Wildcard Gaming was anticipating Change My Mind, reading them playing Windwalker Death Knight. So Wildcard Gaming traditionally would run the Windwalker Death Knight into the Rogue Mage. Change My Mind, they run the Frost Mage Shadow Priest into that. Wildcard Gaming just a step ahead. Once again, they're going to be locking in the Elemental Shaman Frost Mage. Now, I don't think the Elemental Shaman Frost Mage has a massive advantage in this matchup, but I do think they might have a slight lead. Definitely going to be interesting.
I'm anticipating this to be quite a long game, maybe even the longest during the day. These two compositions are very durable, ranged spellcaster cleave. So aside from some significant mistakes, they will be able to always play at an advantageous position to avoid the most amount of damage. Although currently just chilling out in midfield, not really the best position to be when your healer is crowd controlled. Looney has to use his Gliders Medallion to remove that polymorph and connect Ironbark. Morrow then looks to counter engage and attack Valet, but Mpoike immediately stabilizes that. So throughout the first attack, let's take stock of the cooldowns. Icy Veins was used by both mages, so no advantage there. Gliders Medallion used for Looney and not for Mpoike, so slight advantage to Change My Mind early on.
Yeah, like you said, these teams sitting in midfield, sitting in Blizzard, they're definitely going to be chilling in this matchup. Pride Kitty caught into a Lightning Lasso right now. Good burst damage here coming from Wildcard Gaming. Polymorph setup onto Valet. Lightning Lasso onto Fried Kitty. These are the consistent setups we could potentially see from Wildcard Gaming moving forward. But like you said, outside of a massive Elemental Shaman one-shot, I feel like this is a matchup that probably will need some sort of dampening. Both Restoration Druids playing relatively passive, going for early drinks, keeping their mana nice and high. If at any moment someone's taking too much damage, they can retreat back to the pillar, out of line of sight. Valet getting bursted down. Gladiator Safeguard, a nice little lifeline he has available to avoid some of that Elemental Shaman burst one-shot opportunity. But now without that available, needs to be a little bit careful.
Well, Mpoike wanted to bash Morrow, but got totally shut down on it. Now he's bashed himself, possibly into a Ring of Frost. Valet life gripping Mpoike out of that crowd control, but now they're both stuck in it. They're not able to get to their teammate who's on the opposite side of the map. Mpoike decides to jump over it, try and get back to Fried Kitty, but he doesn't want to risk compromising his positioning. Running out in midfield as a healer is a big mistake in this matchup. You can see Looney, he's basically inside of the pillar. Looney doesn't, or Mpoike doesn't want to leave the pillar either. You're going to be exposed to crowd control. Looney sees an opportunity to get in stealth, jump across the map, stun into Cyclone. Good crowd control chain, the classic. Fried Kitty the target here, but with Ice Barrier and his positioning at the pillar, isn't taking too much damage. Morrow lining up an Ebon Bolt Flurry. That breaks down the shield of Fried Kitty. Zeepai landing a Stormkeeper. This could be some decent damage with these lightning bolts onto Fried Kitty with the Ray of Frost. Fried Kitty blinking back to Mpoike's side. Big heal there. More importantly, that Mpoike is running Soul of the Forest, so when he Swiftmends, he will get a buff called Soul of the Forest. This amplifies his next heal. He used it on Regrowth, which almost turns Regrowth into as powerful of a heal as Lay on Hands, topping his mage off, and that is a good move, a good heal to select when in a mage versus mage, because the Kleptomania isn't nearly as effective as if it was able to steal a Rejuvenation. So I do like his Soul of the Forest usage there. Immediate recovery and no advantage given to the other team. Wildcard Gaming now engaging crowd control again. This time Valet the target. He is out in midfield. Multiple Gliders Maledict, that Shadow Ball incoming. Lay not taking too much damage, though, as a result of it. Now turning the tables, going after Zeepai. Looney being interrupted by Fried Kitty. Well timed there, but still no real opening. Really looking at mana at this point to see who has the edge when Poike is drinking, so I believe he regenerated to tie up with Looney, and mana will be important when we get closer to dampening. Most certainly could be the one win condition for either team that is guaranteed. Damage on Morrow. Good counterattacked by Change My Mind. However, that was the Icy Veins of Fried Kitty, so if that subsides and they don't get any other cooldown of significance, Morrow still has his. He can then look to counterattack with it and potentially net a kill. So Change My Mind will need to be aware of this threat until Morrow has decided to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the Frost Mage spell steal, especially with the Honor talent Kleptomania. It's really powerful at removing tons of heal over time effects. In fact, all of the heal over time effects that these Restoration Druids have. Keep in mind, both teams, Change My Mind, they have the Shadow Priest, Wildcard Gaming, they have Zeepai on the Elemental Shaman. Both of them also have Dispel capabilities in this matchup, so they can use the Purge for the Elemental Shaman, the Dispel Magic for the Elemental Priest, and that's where these games can sort of start spiraling out of control, especially later on. The Restoration Druid is going to rely on some of those heal over time effects, and if they fall too far behind, then Zeepai, Valet, they can use those offensive dispels to keep a target clean of the heal over time effects and really start generating a lot of pressure.
Which is why, as the Druid in this matchup, you only want to be using Soul to Forest on regrowth, using that for a big powerhouse heal rather than amplifying your heal over time effects, because they'll just be stolen or removed. So both Druids using the Soul to Forest effectively to top off their partners, and when they are in dire straits. No significant lead just yet, but Dampening has entered the fight, as I do anticipate this to potentially break records between these two compositions. Both teams really lack punch, the lack of a Destruction Warlock, the lack of Chaos Bolts. There's no real significant burst damage outside of potentially an Earth Shock, at least early on. However, deeper into Dampening, the upwards of 40 to 50%, the sustained damage of the Shadow Priest, the sustained damage of the Elemental Shaman will start to sink in, and it is possible that we could see any member of this game die, and when I say that, I mean at the same time. So this game does get quite chaotic and quite hectic, but it does require a significant amount of dampening to do so.
Yep, Zeepai getting a little bit low. Looney dispelling off some of those Shadow Priest damage over time effects. Both teams are sort of stabilized at this point. Morrow, Fried Kitty, both in midfield. Zeepai going for Lightning Lasso. That gets trinketed by Fried Kitty. Looney actually making an offensive push, getting crowd control over on him in Poike as he leaps away, likely to go try and recover his mana. Looney using a lot of Cyclones. That uses a lot of mana, and now because of that, he is a little bit behind as he charges in stealth and sitting down for a drink. Minpoike trying to shut that down. Is he going to be able to? That's the question. Rake's done over on Minpoike as Zeepai makes a swap on him. In the meantime, Morrow generating some pressure on Valet in midfield. Minpoike getting stunned up. Good setup here from Zeepai, punishing Minpoike for trying to deny Looney from drinking. I don't actually know if Looney got out of combat. He did. He reset his mana. And now, Wildcard Gaming, they actually have a lead at around 10% dampening. Yeah, and before deep dampening, they have the edge just because they have the Elemental Shaman. One big Earth Shock could KO someone if they don't respond appropriately or in time before their health reaches 0. Of course, at that point, they will lose. 12% dampening and continuing to rise. Mana lead in favor of Wildcard Gaming. Interesting crowd control chain here by Change My Mind. The Psychic Scream on Looney and the Silence on Zeepai. They use Silence to prevent Tremor Totem, which removes Psychic Scream, so that's why Valet spread those crowd control effects onto two members. Wasn't really able to capitalize any damage off that play and instead had to use his Dispersion. And this is one of those fights where if you play aggressive and push forward, you're just compromising your positioning, you're risking losing. It's quite difficult to actually make the decision to push. Currently, Wildcard Gaming in the driver's seat with two members crowd controlled and then the third on the run and basically dead. This could easily be an ice block, and yes, it will. So now a mana lead and a cooldown lead. Dampening continues to ramp up. Fried Kitty is looking to be the focus fire target for Wildcard Gaming, but of course they can't always switch. Switching targets in this matchup is definitely going to be happening a lot, as the focus fire target could stay at the pillar for an extended period of time, and you're just forced to deal damage to another target, which will then expend more mana from the Druids, and then when the mana has run out, there's going to be no more healing, and then it is at this point that the fireworks start. Still think at this point in the game, Fried Kitty should be using his Cold Snap. Finally he does, but he's about 40 seconds behind on that cooldown, so it'll be interesting to see if that ends up mattering later on. If he waited too long, And, you know, if Cold Snap or Ice Block only has a 30-second cooldown left, that might end up costing them the game. But for now, he's safe with one more Ice Block. He gets topped off by Minpoike. If we look at mana, once again, Wildcard Gaming, they have the lead. We're at 21% dampening. Valet caught in the midfield, getting bursted down. The problem with the Shadow Priest is he doesn't have the same sort of mobility as the Elemental Shaman, so if he gets stuck in these situations where Zeepai and Maro can just spam out damage onto him, makes it really difficult for him to survive. But at any moment, he could use the Dispersion to run away if he really needed to. And Poike trying to position far away, trying to reset his mana, but there's just good pressure here for Wildcard Gaming. Valet getting bursted down once again, and Poike cannot afford to go for these drinks right now. Ring of Frost being channeled out. Nice double Ring of Frost setup coming in from Maro. Valet left all on his own. Crowd control breaks early. Minpoike actually trinketed out. Now Valet still just trying to escape. He uses his Greater Fade. Dispersion still available if he needs it, but Minpoike is really struggling to keep him alive.
At the start of the game, we weren't certain whether or not which team had the advantage, but I think at this point it's clear that Wildcard Gaming have the advantage. I think, change my mind, if they win this, they have to make it to 60% dampening with a full mana bar. Right now they're about halfway with basically 0 mana left, so they are far away from that goal point to victory, and they're just going to be pinned down at the pillar, under fire, constantly stressed, and it's going to be so difficult for them to actually make it to that point where the Shadow Priest damage will start to sink in. Resto Druid's the most powerful healer I would consider in the meta. Some situations where the other healers are brought in for a slight advantage, but in this matchup in particular, they are just a very powerful healer, quite durable, and there's no Mortal Strike effect to reduce their healing, so this game is going to be going on for some time. Fried Kitty under fire again. Minpoike is polymorphed. I don't believe Mass Dispel is available, so he's going to have to sit through that. This means that Fried Kitty will likely have to Ice Block. He's trying to do some evasive maneuvers, sneaking around the sides of the pillars and holding on to dear life. He does not want to have to use his last Ice Block, but he certainly has to as Zeepai and Maro close in around him. Minpoike is still crowd controlled. Void Shift available for Valet, and perhaps he's hovering over that as Fried Kitty is struggling to even recover. Minpoike gets out of crowd control. Fortunate that he has Innervate here. Innervate making all of his healing spells free, so he can spend a lot of expensive spells like Wild Growth, save his mage. But Wildcard Gaming have actually just even abandoned the mage as the target, now pressuring down Valet. Minpoike will have to heal 2 targets. That's going to cost him more mana. He may not even be able to heal through it. There's a lot of damage. Dispersion from Valet prevents the kill and possibly allows Minpoike to recover, but now still continued to be crowd controlled. Wildcard Gaming are asserting dominance in game number 1.
This is looking disastrous for Change My Mind. Minpoike goes into a polymorph. He has to trinket out. It just came up in the nick of time. Valet in a little bit of trouble. Fried Kitty, yes, the Icy Veins available. Maybe at this moment he could counter pressure. We are at almost 40% dampening where really anything could happen. Beautiful counter spell going to be landed by Fried Kitty, slowing down Looney's heals just a little bit. Zeepai, though, in a good position to avoid damage if he really needs to. Innervate going to be enough to extend Looney's mana, top off his team's hit points, and now Wildcard Gaming, once again, they're in a great position. Valet has no dispersion, another 50 seconds. Fried Kitty, no Ice Block for another 40 seconds. He has to wait for that Cold Snap cooldown. Poike getting bursted down. He's caught into a stun. Wildcard Gaming all over the place. The Leap of Faith going to be used by Valet to keep Minpoike alive, bringing him out of line of sight, but this victory is slipping out of their hands.
I mean, at this point, what else can they do? All 3 members are at half health. Dampening at 41%, and Minpoike at basically 5% mana. Minpoike has a choice to make. Go in cap form and attack and hope they kill the target before his team dies. That's basically his only option. It's do or die at this point, and he is trying his best to attack Zeepai and put some pressure on the board for his team. He could be the X factor with the Feral Affinity, but it is such a risky maneuver when he's under so much pressure. He has to both heal and deal damage. Looney jumps in, denies the recovery on the Tranquility with a bash. Valet fades the Gladiator's Maledict, but now there's a Lightning Lasso. He has dispersion for that. Valet is actually making a bold move here by running into the enemy team. He soaks all the important spells and trades a cooldown. Fried Kitty didn't have any cooldowns to make the trade, so Valet is basically throwing himself at his opponents to try and soak damage, but he's now totally out of cooldowns himself, so he can really no longer stay in this position. It is going to be a race to the finish. I do see potential for multiple members in this game to die at the same time. There is still now finally damage sinking in on Maro and Zeepai. The Shadow Priest dots at 50% dampening are going to be effective. effective. Valet using his Gladiator's Medallion to remove the Lightning Lasso, so he does not take the percent health damage, but Fried Kitty has no Icebox remaining. Minpoike is in a Polymorph, unable to heal. Cold Snap in 8 more seconds. Can Wildcard Gaming kill before that period of time? They're not even going to go after the Mage, instead switching back to Valet. He is an immobile target on that Shadow Priest. It will be very difficult for him to escape to safety. His healer is still crowd controlled. Valet doing everything that he can to make it to that 60% dampening mark to maybe have a shot, but ultimately not able to make it all of the way, and Wildcard Gaming take game 1.
Yeah, Wildcard Gaming, I think it was a very good read from them there in that situation. They read that the God Comp or some sort of counter comp was going to come out of Change My Mind if they locked in Windwalker Death Knight, and the Elemental Mage looked strong.
The Elemental Mage just looks like the superior wizard. I mean, the LA Shaman just provides such good burst, and Zeepai, of course, pre-tremoring some of those fears as well at the end of that game. Just has so many different tools here. You can always rely on the Lightning Lasso in deep dampening to do work for you. Of course, big Earth Shocks are going to be forcing Fried Kitty to have no ice blocks and just kind of play very defensively, and that's going to just allow Maru to dish out so much more damage. And I think that's a big reason why this composition is so good. You can see Zeepai, again, just chasing everybody down, thunderstorming people actually into that Ring of Frost of Maru. And they have this kind of triangle formation where Zeepai is on one end, and of course Maru is on the other end. And when you're relying on the Shadow Priest to do a lot of the work, you do need a bit of dampening. Shadow Priest is more like a kind of hybrid support and damage dealer, whereas the Elemental Shaman just packs a much bigger burst with things like the Stormkeeper, with things like the Lightning Lasso and the Earth Shocks. You don't really have that same burst. And when it comes to these Wizard Mirrors, it's not always the DPS that wins, because the Shadow Priest does do more DPS. It's more about the burst, because when you burst somebody, all of a sudden that team has to run away, be defensive, and that just allows the rest of the team to keep hitting somebody else, and that builds up the pressure. And we saw them swap back and forth between the Mage and the Shadow Priest, just taxing Minpoike's mana way too much.
Yeah, I mean, of course, in a game like this, right, like when you have compositions like this and teams of this caliber, of this skill, the first 5 minutes until dampening builds up, neither team's really going to give an inch. It's really difficult to build that pressure, force teams defensive just because the healing from the Druids is so high. But once dampening started to build up, you pointed out something important in this game was that Fried Kitty held on to his Cold Snap for a little bit, and then at the end he wasn't there to support Villi until potentially too late.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the thing is the Shadow Priest is just so bullyable in that matchup. When you're at that point in the game where you're far behind, you have to start getting out the vampiric touches, but every time you go for those casted abilities and try to get out that significant damage, you're susceptible to a counterspell, to a wind shear, and once you get interrupted, it's just a nightmare. You can't really do too much as that Shadow Priest, and you just fall further and further behind. And like Zeke kind of mentioned, having that massive burst damage potential is going to be more important. Yeah, and like you said, Fried Kitty holding onto that Cold Snap for a little while. Sometimes mages like to do that, where while they're on hypothermia, they want to hold on to that Cold Snap just so they can have the safety net of an ice barrier. If they really, really need it, they can use 2 of them in a row, but it might have ended up costing them a lot of pressure at that moment in the game. It's good you pointed that out. Changed my mind. They're going to be switching up their composition, going back to the Shadow Priest Rogue Restoration Druid. They're going to be tagging out Fried Kitty. I think it's an intelligent decision, just because that matchup did not look good for them at all.
Yeah, I mean, this is the matchup they played at the Spring Finals. They were able to take down Wildcard Gaming. My question is, Sid, do we prefer the Shadow Priest Rogue here, or would we have perhaps preferred the Mage Rogue, which we saw success on Friday for them?
I think either one. I feel like Changed My Mind want to focus on the Shadow Priest Rogue, so if they get back to the finals, they can maybe clean it up because they felt so confident in it, even though they got 3-0'd earlier today. So perhaps this is them just warming up and saying, if we can't win with it here, then maybe we just can't win the tournament right now, I guess. But I feel like that's kind of just throwing it away if they're not even willing to test it. I'm wondering why they ended up going with Ashamane's Fall, one of the largest maps in the pool, when they have a rogue on their team against a mage and an elemental shaman. I would have thought that they would want a smaller map so they can close the gap. I mean, they have such limited mobility. The Shadow Priest is easily I think it is the slowest melee. It doesn't have Demonic Circle or Demonic Gateway. I would vote Shadow Priest as the slowest melee, or slowest caster in the game. Yeah. And then Acro on Rogue is also not one of the highest mobility melee classes, so... Wait, are we not? Well, we're not on Ashmane. Oh, no, we are on Ashmane. The statue confused me. It's similar to Black Recall. I was like, wait a minute. I don't know why they picked this map. It's very confusing. Maybe? I mean, yeah, but Looney benefits from drinking. I feel like they should be running them out of mana faster with the Mortal Strike effect if they just stay on target. I don't like the map pick.
Well, I think the biggest thing I mean, I have to imagine what they want to set up is Minpoike going for drinks if they can extend the matchup. I don't think Change My Mind's victory is, or one of their win conditions. I mean, one of their win conditions potentially be getting Looney out of mana, but I don't think they need to do that. It's going to be about high aggression on either Zeepai or Maro with a lot of dispels. Valet on that Shadow Priest is going to be able to use Dispel Magic quite often, and it's going to be about just getting Looney behind so they can just get a kill with all-out aggression, not necessarily because he's just completely tapped on mana. So it makes a little bit of sense to me that they would do that, but like you said, it is a bit odd. And I don't think this is a matchup where Change My Win just automatically win. Like Wildcard Gaming with the Frostmage Elemental Shaman, they're still going to have a lot of burst potential. Valet, he's going to have to deal with a lot of interrupts, and on this map, it's going to be very easy for Wildcard Gaming to sort of kite around and deny Acro a lot of his damage.
One way that this map makes sense is that it's like a heads-up play in the series overall. They feel they can win the matchup on this map, but they know Wildcard Gaming has a counter to their Rogue Shadow Priest, so they're in a way trying to steal a map away from Wildcard Gaming future on and moving into the series. But I don't think this map is favorable to them. If they wanted to get a guaranteed victory with this composition, something smaller where the Shadow Priest and the Rogue can stay on target and get back to defense soon. I mean, look at right now, Valet is just in the middle of the map, and pillars are so far away from him, and he's going to be stuck there, and his healer is crowd controlled, has to use Gladiator's Medallion already to remove it, and now they're just going to abandon the kill, polymorph Valet, maybe even just switch targets to Acro. I mean, Wildcard Gaming can tee off on whoever they want on this map against this composition. I'm not a fan of it. Minpoike Cyclone now. Acro is getting hammered, and look where he is, middle of the map. The Zeepai can free cast. Maro is just having his way with Acro, just avoiding him with snares or potentially pulling him very far away and then around a corner. Finally, some counter aggression, though, for Change My Mind as they go after Maro, but no crowd control on Looney. Finally, Mind Bomb. That will hold Looney in place, but Acro again having a difficult time trying to sap out of Mind Bomb. Does get it. Good crowd control chain here by Change My Mind. This could easily be the first ice block of the game if they can stay on target. It needs to be the first ice block of the game. They drop the smoke bomb to press the issue, and they get it. One major objective out of the way, and a good sign of life from Change My Mind.
Yeah, Change My Mind, those are the exact setups that they want. They just get a lot of aggression rolling. Valet can just spam out the Dispel Magic, and they can just ride off that momentum. Maro now, one ice block down, has another available. Looney into some crowd control, Mind Bomb into Silence. Trinket rolling up in around 18 seconds. If we look at mana, Looney a little bit ahead in this particular matchup. There is decent damage rolling for Wildcard Gaming, a little bit of pressure so far in this game, but I think Acro's going to be fine. He still has his Cloak of Shadows. That's a big safety net for him. Valet hasn't had to use any of his defensive cooldowns yet. Lightning Lasso now on Acro. They need to be careful. They have to try to shut that down if they can. Into a Reg Stun, big burst damage potential, but Minpoike seems to be easily able to deal with it at this time. He stabilizes Acro, and I think this is basically going to be one of those games where your strategy is abuse the melee just as much as you can throughout the game. Try to get damage rolling on Acro, bring him into positions where, you know, he's compromised, and it's not going to be easy for Minpoike and Valet to back him up. But so far, it hasn't been working. Change My Mind has been able to deal with that quite easily.
Oh, Tremor Totem able to remove Mind Bomb. That's definitely almost a bit of a soft counter from Wildcard Gaming. I'm wondering if Change My Mind had anticipated that. That means they're going to need to cross crowd control the Elemental Shaman on those big pushes. Acro had a lot of trouble. Cyclone dead. A sliver of health. I mean, Looney and Catform could kill him through Cloak of Shadows if he's not careful in this position. Cyclone again at very low health. Minpoike is not bashed. Cloak is required, but it's going to be fading and subsiding. Its defense, its immunity to magic is now over. He's still not in a safe position. Now in a Lightning Lasso. No Gladiator's Medallion. This could be a Void Shift if Maro can support. Looney, though, gets sapped. Perhaps Change My Mind can turn this on its head and get some pressure. They are targeting Zeepai. They realize that the Tremor Totem is going to be a threat to the crowd control that they've brought to game number 2. They need pressure on the Elemental Shaman. Even though they've been working so hard to get ice blocks from Maro, they may be required to actually attack the Shaman. Blind play here onto Looney. He uses Gladiator's Medallion to break it. That is a pretty standard play as a healer to use your Medallion to remove blind. It's the longest guaranteed crowd control in the match. Acro in a bit of trouble, though. Another Lightning Lasso. Minpoike saves him with Iron Bark. Continues his assault, but Cyclone with Ursul's Vortex holding him at the pillar. Acro is going to have a difficult time making it back to his target unless he uses a Shadow Step. And then if he does, he's going to get Thunderstormed. So Acro definitely being abused by the matchup and the map. Frost Nova on the Polymorph Dispel. I mean, Acro has been in one spot for the better part of 20 seconds, and Looney's taking advantage of that to sit down and drink. Change My Mind are pushing for aggression while they see the healer drinking.
Ooh.
And Poike tried to snipe him with Vortex to get him in combat, but ended up missing. He had to guess. He didn't know exactly where he was, but regardless, Looney now has a significant mana lead.
Oh no, there might be an issue here with Z-Pies running in place. Finally going to be back. Looney in some crowd control, needs to be able to top him off. Is he going to be able to do so? It does look like it, and that was a big drink there. Big moment for Wildcard Gaming to stay in this matchup. Acro still vulnerable. No Cloak of Shadows for another 23 seconds, but there's a lot of lifelines here for Change My Mind. They still have the Void Shift. They still have Iron Bark Trinket from Poike. Big setup now onto Z-Pie. Looney responds with the Iron Bark to deny some of that damage. And I don't know, Sid, who do you feel like is going to be favored as this matchup advances into later stages of dampening?
I feel like Wildcard Gaming is certainly going to be favored, and it would be unfortunate for any player to have a technical difficulty, as it is their personal responsibility maintain their connection into the match. So the match will not be remade if there is a problem. So hopefully Wildcard Gaming are not going to continue to have that. That would be a devastating way to go down in game number 2 and have the series tied up. And Poike very far in the corner drinking. I mean, that is the trade, although he was sniped by the Earthbind totem of Z-Pie, so I do believe he did not regenerate any mana, and he didn't. So drink denial on point from Wildcard Gaming. Their abuse of the map that Changed My Mind picked is on point. They've now developed a significant lead moving into dampening. They've got great crowd control in this position with 3 members locked down. They're trying to follow up with Big Burst.
Ooh.
Ray of Frost is going to get Cloak of Shadows. Acrolol now needs to be careful, as he will not have that immunity to effectively all of the damage on Wildcard Gaming's team. The most powerful cooldown in the arsenal of Change My Mind is now not available.
Yeah, Cloak of Shadows, such a powerful ability for Acro. Anytime Wildcard Gaming can force that out, it allows Acro to be such a vulnerable target for 2 minutes. He's got about 1 minute and 40 seconds left until that cooldown rolls back up once again. But as a rogue, you have to be very careful. So far, Acro's been doing a good job rotating through his defensives, but he actually opts to use his Trinket and Vanish aggressively. I'm not sure they're going to be able to get too much done. He's just going full-on crowd control right now onto Looney. He has his Trinket. Z-Pie is just getting lower. Unfortunate. Good crowd control coming in from Acro, and I think that will beat the game. Tied up here. Change My Mind, winning on Ashmane's Fall.
Yep, obviously unfortunate there for Z-Pie, presumably disconnecting from the game at the end of that one. Players are responsible for their own internet connections, so that will be a victory over to Change My Mind going into game 3 here. But overall, prior to the disconnect, obviously, what did you think of the matchup, Zico?
It felt like the map was kind of backfiring on them. They had some pressure onto Acrolals, and it looked like the map allows them to kind of play to their win condition here on the side of Wildcard Gaming. They can stay away, they can pressure the rogue, just abuse the melee like we kind of said, and it's hard as the assassination rogue to really get much work done. But with that said, I think the strategy of Change My Mind is more to just stay back and then Shadow Step Kidney whatever they can, and then later on in the game they can get a nice CC chain and potentially pressure somebody down. They have a lot of dispels. I don't think the matchup is bad, but I think picking it on Ashamane's is it's kind of brave.
Yeah, a brave situation. Obviously, not a great situation either for Wildcard Gaming, but they will now have composition and map advantage. We'll catch up with them after this quick break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Arena World Championship Sunday, in fact, here at the first cup of the summer season. We're obviously in a tied game right now between Wildcard Gaming and Change My Mind. Wildcard Gaming with an abrupt and unfortunate end to that game, but they do still have the advantage in the series here with this map and composition pick coming up next. I'm Healingstad, I'm hosting for you guys. We have Venruki, Supertease, and Zico with the expert analysis and gameplay commentary. Now, obviously not the perfect situation for Wildcard Gaming, but Change My Mind. Ultimately, if we look at the series as a whole, I think it's fair to say that it's a completely different ball game to what we saw on Friday, and that's got to be good for Wildcard.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Change My Mind should just try to play the Rogue Mage Druid into this Ellie Mage. I feel like if you play it on a small map, you have a pretty good chance at taking down the Elemental Shaman. The Assassination Rogue can have a lot of uptime, and you can kind of set up some of those bursts. We know that the Rogue Mage Druid is very, very durable as well in today's meta, so it's a little bit surprising to see that they're not opting in for it, but they seem to know something that we don't.
Unpopular take here, but Change My Mind actually seem to be better when they have 3 people than 4 people. It's like the gods or the fate is deciding for them what they should play. It seems better than when they're deciding what should happen. Like if Villai wasn't here right now, maybe they would be doing better in this series.
I mean, yeah, potentially. It forces you in a situation where you kind of have to shut your brain off
like
a little
lost
bit.
confidence in their RMD or something here.
Maybe they just don't feel like it's the best matchup. I mean, that matchup wasn't horrible for them. I mean, they ended up winning. It was kind of a weird way to win, but at the end of the day, there was still hope for them. I think later on in Dampening, we were kind of talking about during the game that we feel like the Frost Mage Elemental Shaman might have an advantage, but I think it could easily swing the other way. Also, once Luna gets far behind, those Dispel Magic effects coming in from the Shadow Priest with the Assassination Rogue, it makes it really difficult to heal through. So if they can get just 1 or 2 clean setups onto that Elemental Shaman, I think they could easily take him down. So it's not the most one-sided matchup. I do think that Change My Mind has an opportunity to win with that one. Moving forward, I'm kind of curious to see what they go with for the blind pick. Are they going to go with the Shadow Priest, Rogue, Druid once again? And if they do decide to go with that, is Wildcard Gaming going to lock in Windwalker, Death Knight, Mistweaver? Because that seems to be one of their most powerful, most practiced compositions. So anytime they can lock that in, I feel like that's the direction they're probably going to be going with.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. Do you guys agree that maybe the next composition should be the Blind Rogue Mage, or would you like to see something else, maybe starting with you, Sid?
If they play Blind Rogue Mage in your Wildcard Gaming, what do you play? That's what you have to ask yourself. So can Change My Mind beat Windwalker Death Knight with Rogue Mage Druid?
I'd say no.
Then the answer is don't lock in Rogue Mage Druid blind. I think the Shadow Priest Rogue might have better odds against the Mage Elemental than the Rogue Mage would have against the Windwalker Death Knight, and if they're using just analytics and statistical odds, then that is how they should make their decision. If they decide to just say, oh, well, we're going to try Rogue Mage because at this point Shadow Priest Rogue has gone 0-4 aside from a technical difficulty victory. So on the day, maybe they're just not on point. That could be something as well. So making a change might help them, but I think statistically their odds are better with the Shadow Priest Rogue blind.
I love the fact that Change My Mind's logo is like the coffee mug, because Fried Kitty, I know he's a huge fan of his morning coffee, his afternoon coffee, his evening coffee. He's going to be sipping on one right now, thinking about what he does want to come up with in this next series.
I actually have a coffee mug with Mimpoika's face on it.
Really?
Oh yeah, you do. You were going to give it away, I remember.
I was going to give it to Waz if he won the spring final, but
he didn't win.
Right now I'm still holding that trophy at home.
What kind of special occasion do you think that would go for?
I don't know. Maybe Europe winning BlizzCon.
Why do you have it?
He has the Joe T-shirt as well, dude. Why do you think?
Yeah, but did Minpoike make the mug with his face on it?
No.
Or did you make that yourself?
I didn't make it myself.
You didn't make any of that stuff.
I just kind of got sent a box with stuff, and now I kind of, I like to collect transmogs in World of Warcraft. I like to collect some transmogs in real life.
Speaking of that, we saw Blizzo I think he had the Warglaives on or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
They look really good, right? No wonder he's doing so much damage. But I mean, we haven't seen Blizzo yet in this series. Maybe he needs to whip out some Warglaives.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think that if Changed My Mind, they lock in the Rogue Shadow Priest Restoration Druid, which just seems to be their favorite composition. I kind of wonder how the Elemental Shaman Windwalker would do into that. It seems like it would be really durable. The Shadow Priest could easily be bullied by the Windwalker Monk and the Elemental Shaman, so that might be the direction Wildcard Gaming is going with. They've opted to go to Tolvaron Arena, which is curious to me. Why?
I mean, this tells me that Ashamains is just a mistake pick from Change My Mind. If Wildcard Gaming select the biggest maps.
Or a takeaway.
Yeah, could be a takeaway too.
Yeah, it was hard to say whether it was a successful one or not.
Yeah.
It's the Rogue Mage. That's what we wanted to see.
How much? Yeah.
What do we want to see from Wildcard? Is it the DK Windwalker every time here?
Should we wager on this one?
Wager a cup, perhaps?
No, I don't think that's up for grabs. This year,
maybe some gold on the classic
this is a big moment, but I don't think it's that big of a moment, right?
No.
We'll save it for the grand finals.
Oh, damn. If you guys want to get your hands on a cup, we're going to have Twitch chat polls, one in like 10,000 chance or something. But it's going to be the Mage Elemental coming in here from Wildcard.
That's curious.
It feels like Change My Mind actually took the map and flipped it on its head. It looked like Wildcard Gaming were setting up for something like this, the Mage Elemental, and they wanted to get maybe the Rogue Shadow Priest into that. Change My Mind, though, They don't want to blind lock the Rogue Shadow Priest, so they go for the Rogue Mage Druid. Wildcard Gaming, they went ahead and locked in the Mage Ellie anyway, and this matchup isn't too bad. Of course, on this particular map, it's going to be, kind of tricky to win against the Wizard Cleave, but I feel like the Rogue Mage has a little bit more opportunity to actually win the game compared to the Shadow Priest Rogue, just because of the mobility of the Mage. It's going to be much needed on a map like this, and of course the CC chains as well.
Doesn't this feel like exactly like we saw in Spring Cup 1 and 2? Like, these are the compositions that we saw. These are the kind of matchups that we saw. It's weird how it kind of reverted. It's like
rotated.
Yeah, Demon Hunter Death Knight sort of flipped the meta on its head, just deleting the rogue mages, and then they figured out Feral Affinity, and now that composition's completely out of the
rotation.
Yeah, it's just gonzo.
I guess it is the same patch, right? So it's not that surprising that we're seeing the same compositions. They just had to figure out something.
Yeah,
right?
just Demon
It's
Hunter
like
Death
a blip
Knight.
in the Matrix.
Yeah, Demon Hunter Death Knight was the single composition that just destroyed everything. And now that people figured it out, it's just back to normal, back to business.
It was like
Frost Mage Resto Druid.
It was like a civilization. It got wiped out by these Demon Hunters, DK Overlords. And now slowly civilization's crawling back up. We got these mages. It's even a desert. They haven't rebuilt quite yet, but obviously this is not the pick we were expecting though. So you guys were expecting Windwalker DK. Obviously Wildcard Gaming literally beat Chucky Milkman playing Rogue Mage with the Windwalker DK. Why do you think they're not opting for a hit? Because from my point of view, I feel like that was the choice. Maybe it's because of the map setup. Maybe Changed My Mind kind of played them.
I would say it's just Tolvaron 100%. Like Zico kind of mentioned, they turned the map on its head for Wildcard Gaming. So Wildcard Gaming doesn't want to lock in that cleave setup. Maybe it's too easy for the Frost Mage, the Restoration Druid to really control up the game. So they opted to try to bring in the double wizard setup, the Frost Mage, Elemental Shaman, Resto Druid, which is kind of traditional. A lot of teams like to favor that double caster setup on such a large map.
Yep, well, this could potentially be the swing match, ladies and gentlemen. One apiece, the score lies right now. Changed My Mind, of course, still at a deficit in the series. This was the counter pick from Wildcard Gaming. Let's see if they can pull it out here. Elimination, everything's on the line for these two teams.
It's not very often we see an Elemental Shaman picked into Rogue Mage. I feel like Elemental Shamans and Enhancement Shamans have some built-up hidden resentment towards Rogue Mage, and I don't really understand why they felt the need to go with it. I mean, they set the map up for this comp, but Changed My Mind then took the map in their own advantage by going with the Mage Rogue. So Wildcard Gaming are just saying, well, we're confident with this comp on the map, even though, technically speaking, Rogue Mage has been historically the best pick into an Elemental Shaman. So it's pretty even in that regard due to both teams' reluctance to try and take the advantage compositionally, but rather play around the map's advantage.
It's kind of interesting. What do you feel about Poike, Acro, and Fried Kitty all running Relentless in this matchup?
Maybe it's to deal with the Lightning Lasso, try and reduce its effectiveness overall. It does mean that if Poike is ever polymorphed, he will not be able to get out and escape, especially if one of his partners are Lightning Lassoed. So it's maybe just to maximize their damage. That's the only thing that really makes sense to me, and then reduce the effectiveness of Lightning Lasso. Whereas on the opposing side, of course, all three members running Gladiator's Medallion. That is to deal with the rogue as the threat. You typically want to be, unless you're playing Orc or Human, you want to be running that Gladiator's Medallion because the rogue smoke bomb is such a big threat. If you're not running that, you'll just be caught in that line of sight blocker and burst it down. I mean, already instantly at the start of the game, Acro has dropped that smoke bomb. Zipa able to escape out of it, but into a Cyclone at low health, and Cyclone stops healing and damage, so he's going to hover at that health until he comes out. Uni, though, immediately recovers. I would say that Wildcard Gaming dealt with that smoke bomb very easily, not even having to use Iron Bark or Astral Shift. No Gladiator's Medallion, so Acro's early aggression not paying off.
Yeah, it's interesting, too. Pretty much everyone in this game is running the Night Elf race, and if you're wondering why, it's for the racial shadow meld, and if they're not running that, they're going to be running the Dark Iron Dwarf. And the reason why so many of these players and so many of these teams have opted in to these two different racials is to deal with the Gladiator's Maledict. When it was first introduced, players really didn't know how to deal with it, and it was just overwhelming. People were just falling down from 3 members of the team throwing in a Gladiator's Maledict. It's overwhelming amount of healing reduction, healing absorb, and damage. So they decided to go with the Shadow Meld, with the Dark Iron Dwarf, to help sort of mitigate those trinkets and stay alive in the game for a prolonged period of time. It's an adaptation these teams made, specifically when that trinket was brought in.
Yep, definitely a nice pickup, playing the Night Elf and the Dark Iron Dwarf. Decent damage here on Fried Kitty. Actually a bit surprising this early on. Poike, though, out of crowd control and able to stabilize. It should be fairly easy for both Druids to be able to drink on this map, so my anticipation for this is that it's going to be a long haul game, definitely into the deeper stages of dampening, and there's going to be a critical mass point, I think around the 20 and 30% mark, where Acro will force Astral Shift from Zeepai and still have Vendetta, and then have one opportunity to push and kill, and if they don't get the kill on Zeepai in that opportunity, then they will lose. In this position, they've actually gotten Astral Shift before Vendetta. Perhaps they can create that situation prior to dampening. This crowd control attempt from Change My Mind definitely on point, banking them some very important cooldowns. They've actually managed to continue the chain. Multiple Gladiators Maledicts. Acro definitely needs to stay on target, but gets Lightning Lassoed, so he's held in place, unable to finish off the target. And actually, Fried Kitty was taking quite a bit of damage from Maro amidst that push. Poike now taking a huge chunk of his health away from Zeepai's Earthshock. Wildcard Gaming focusing on just maximizing their damage output, and Poike is having a tough time.
Acro getting low. What is he going to be able to do? Poike 50% mana at this point of the game. Looney way ahead at around 75%. Are looking for some polymorphs. Does manage to find it on Acro. He just wants to slow down, Change My Mind. They realize they have a mana advantage at this point. If they can just keep up the strategy, it will potentially net them a win. Poike trying to get out of combat, trying to sit down for a drink. Can Zeepai, can Marl stop them? Doesn't look like they're going to be able to. Finally, actually they do. They find the Earthquake, and with this positioning, Looney is in a great spot to sit down, recover his mana by drinking, extending their lead even further. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get too much. It's good for Change My Mind. Poike has to start healing really efficiently in this matchup. He has the Innervate, going to be waiting for a good moment to use that, where he really has to use a lot of mana to catch up, like right now. So he uses the Innervate. Whoa! Acro, I cannot believe Acro didn't use Cloak of Shadows there. I mean, he ended up using the Vanish, but that was lucky. Acro barely holds on, 5% health, and that's one of the scary things about playing up against a Frost Mage, playing up against an Elemental Shaman, is at any moment they can throw a big Shatter combo paired with an Earth Shock, and they can just wipe the floor with you. Acro has to definitely be careful of that moving forward.
I almost can't believe that he didn't Cloak on top of being at that low health. I mean, he could have just thrown the game away entirely at that point in time. And that's the one thing, although it is a long series, every game going into deep dampening, the Elemental Shaman still has the potential to just erase you. So if you're even falling asleep at the keyboard for a moment, you are going to get blasted out of the arena, and Zeepai will be taking advantage of that at any opportunity. Wildcard Gaming, in their past tournament lives, have been known as the dampeners. They love taking it into as deep dampening as possible, dragging the fight out, fatiguing the opposing team. They are definitely known for this strategy, masters of it. So Change My Mind need to make sure they're on point and not falling asleep at the wheel here in this series. They face elimination.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary moment. Acro in a Lightning Lasso. Keep in mind, he's playing Relentless. All these Lightning Lassos will sit full, so I really feel like Wildcard Gaming, they're abusing that. And Acro, he doesn't have an opportunity sometimes to get that Cloak of Shadow and that Vanish off when he really needs it, and that could end up netting a kill for Wildcard Gaming. So although it does reduce the overall damage, you're still so susceptible to just getting stuck in those stuns that I don't know if it was the right decision to make. And then Poike gets shut down on the drink once again, stun onto Acro into a Lightning Lasso. Looney in a great position, and that's one of the advantages that Wildcard Gaming have on this map, is Looney is always so positioned. He's positioned very far away, and it's really difficult for Acro and Fried Kitty to shut that down. And Poike positioning now in a good spot. If he can recover his mana, things will be looking good for Change My Mind, as they are way behind. Looks like Change My Mind, they're not even going to bother shutting it down, and I think this is a big mistake.
Yeah, definitely could be. Both Druids regenerated back to pretty much full mana, so an even ball game. Moving into deep dampening, we're getting to that 20-30% dampening mark, so Change My Mind need to look to try and get Astral Shift without using either Icy Veins or Vendetta, and then make a push later and try and kill Zeepai with one of those two cooldowns. If they can set that situation up with good crowd control on Looney and deny Maro from casting Polymorph, then most certainly Change My Mind can find victory here and potentially put Wildcard Gaming on match point. However, if they aren't able to create that situation and they can't overwhelm Zeepai and he is able to escape, then the deeper into dampening we go, the deeper down the rabbit hole we go, the more advantaged in favor of Wildcard Gaming it will become, as their damage will just start to stick, and Poike will not be able to heal through it. Acro will struggle to stay on target, so there's limited time windows where they can get pressure. They've activated Vendetta. They're making a big push for that Astral Shift while Looney was trying to drink. Can they get it is the question. They're not even getting the Astral Shift. Zeepai going into Ghost Wolf, using likely the Honor Talent Spectral Recovery, which every 3 seconds heals him for 1% of his health, and the Azerite trait Pack Spirit. This Azerite trait and the Honor Talent combined together turns your Ghost Wolf into a Panzer tank, and unless you can strip it off with Spell Steal before deeper stages of dampening, it is very unlikely that you will be able to kill a Shaman through those combinations of Honor Talents and Azerite traits.
I can't be the only one wondering this. What is a Panzer tank?
Panzer tank? Isn't it like it's a German tank, isn't it? It's like the best tank or something.
I don't know.
It has the highest armor.
It's the most OP tank.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the reference. Someone Google this. Make sure that I'm right, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
All right, well, now that we all know that, the more you know, knowledge is power. Acro going to be taking a little bit of damage. Zeepai's put a kitty shot over on the Zeepai, trying to generate some pressure. We're at 20% dampening at this point. Looney into a crowd control. Nice polymorph secured there by Fried Kitty. Morrow backing him up by just spamming out polymorph onto Fried Kitty, and that's what it's all about for Morrow. Any time that Change My Mind starts developing pressure, he can just throw out polymorphs onto Acro and Fried Kitty. Their moments of opportunity in this matchup are much lower, so whenever they do find them, Morrow can just control up the game as much as possible. As long as he stays alive, as long as he can drag Acro into the open, it's going to be a major benefit to his team.
It could definitely be a benefit. Acro and Zeepai are going to be the focus fire targets here as dampening gets higher and higher. So all the pressure will be on them to kind of anticipate attacks, get into the best defensive position before getting dropped, and you are going to drop very fast into deep dampening. Although it has been fairly slow pace up to this point, things will rapidly ramp up, and currently Acro is leading the charge to try and build pressure here on Zeepai. Looney dispels that Gladiator's Maledict effect, removing its healing absorption and totally stalling that assault. So they are unable to pull Astral Shift from Zeepai prior to Vendetta, and that is the main objective of Change My Mind. And the longer that they spend in midfield, the more damage they take, the further they fall behind, and the more likely they are to lose. So I am curious if they can make it to that point, or if they're going to just crumble under the pressure. Vendetta trades for Astral Shift here and dampening, and Zeepai can escape in Ghost Wolf while Looney is crowd controlled. So I think that this is a fair moment, or fair exchange of cooldowns from Zeepai. Definitely going 1 for 1. However, Icy Veins is available, so now they can go with that for a big punch. They need to make sure that they take off the Ghost Wolf when they go for the attack. Lightning Lasso, Acro in trouble. No Iron Bark for 7, no Cloak for 30 seconds, so Acro has a hard decision to make. Does he push forward and try and get the kill when he has such limited defense, or does he wait and lose potentially the opportunity to be able to win the game? That is about the situation that he needs to create and decide on his own. They aren't on match point just yet, so the stress isn't at its highest point, but if they could take away Tolvaron, that means that the biggest maps are out of the pool, and I would say that's favorable to Change My Mind because their spellcaster compositions are just inferior to the ones that Wildcard Gaming have, and these are the largest maps, and they benefit the spellcasters the most, especially the ones that are the most superior. Acro stunned up again, then Poike denies the kill with Iron Bark. Mana is still even. It is still too difficult to call who is going to take this. However, the longer that it goes, the more of a stalemate that it is. I do favor Wildcard Gaming.
Yeah, I feel like Wildcard Gaming, with the way they're playing it, it's looking good, but things can spiral out of control really quickly against an Assassination Rogue in Dampening, one of the highest single target damage classes in the entire game. Full Cyclone on Looney, Polymorph on Tomorrow, good crowd control here. Minpoike gets swapped to. He has to be a little bit scared in this situation, activating his Innervate. Mana relatively even for both of these healers. Icy Veins gets popped out by Morrow. He's looking to get really aggressive. Meanwhile, Fried Kitty as well. He's trying to get some damage rolling on to Zeepai. Fried Kitty has to be careful. Big Shatter combo potentially coming from Morrow. Fried Kitty hightailing it out of there. He's going to be hiding as much as possible, but he blinks in line of sight. He's just taking so much damage.
Scary.
That was a bit of a scary play there for Fried Kitty. That could have been a big mistake.
Comes out of the ice block, still kind of low. Does get polymorphed, reset on health. Mana actually in favor of Change My Mind, so perhaps if they can prevent Looney from regenerating that, they could win with just some sustained pressure. Although Fried Kitty will have to be careful. Now down 1 ice block. The lead is in favor in cooldowns for Wildcard Gaming. Vendetta gets activated. Morrow polymorphs Acro, but gets interrupted on the follow-up and then polymorphed himself, so good denial. So Acro gets good uptime. Blind. Looney uses Medallion. Fair trade. Fried Kitty gets bursted. And this is the downside when facing the Elemental Shaman Mage, is you feel like you're in control and you're making the push, but suddenly it's just turned on its head and you're at 2% health and having to ice block the second time. Iron Bark's out of the way, and I mean at this point they have to kill Zeepai in the next stun. There's no Astral Shift, no Gladiator's Medallion on Looney, so if they get perfect crowd control, and Maro goes AFK effectively and doesn't use anything to get out of crowd control to stop them, then maybe they can kill Z-Pi. Maro actually getting aggressive, ice blocking to try and get on target. He actually threw away 2 valuable abilities to save Z-Pi in the future to try and get aggressive, so perhaps an opportunity for Change My Mind, but they are very far behind.
Yeah, but you can see Z-Pi's in a lot of trouble, and this is what I'm talking about. The Assassination Rogue on that Elemental Shaman, it can become very scary, especially at 45% dampening. Shadow Step Kick incoming from Acro. He's still all over Z-Pi. Z-Pi's trying to escape. He's trying to run away. Garrote Silence comes in. This could be the setup that they need. They're losing all game, but at 48% dampening, they turned it around. Z-Pi barely holding on. Lightning Lasso onto Acro. Looney getting out of crowd control, but he does not have enough time. Change My Mind winning this game.
Wow, that was a big turnaround, big swing of pressure. Like Maro using his trinket and his ice block to deny the crowd control on Looney, but at 40+% dampening, it didn't seem to matter. They just get the kill on Z-Pi anyways.
That was such a nice play by Maro. Trinketing, heads up play there after Looney got counterspelled to try to shut down the CC chain, blocking the re-polymorph from Fried Kitty. Both of these mages playing amazingly. Manages to kind of weather the storm, shuts down Mimpoike, lands a polymorph, but Acro Man at 44% dampening, doing so much damage, really hard carrying here. Of course, playing with the sprint freedom talent essentially, and the Shadow Step Kick uses the sprint, of course, to stick on his target afterwards as well. And it's not very often. I think it might be the first time ever I'm actually critical of Z-Pi and Looney here, but the way that they're kiting, they are way too close for each other. Right there, Step Kick, and he's immediately back on target. You want to be a little bit more scattered there if you're Z-Pi and Looney. And then, of course, Acro following it up there with the Shadow Melt, gets the cheap shot. Mimpoike, of course, ready to back him up with the Cyclone, with the Star Surge. And then Fried Kitty finally connecting to his target. They're dropping the Frozen Orb, hitting nobody, but that doesn't matter. There's the Comet Storm as well to seal the deal. And that's the strength of the Rogue Mage Druid. Once you get to that deep dampening portion, the Assassination Rogue can just kind of take people out by himself. You have the dampening, you have the wound poison, healing reduction as well, stacking with the dampening. And I think this is what they wanted to do on Ashamans as well when they played the Shadow Priest Rogue. They just never really got to that point in the game.
Yeah, I'm really happy you took the time to put the limelight on Acro there, highlight that play from him, because it really does embody how he's been playing this year. I feel like we talk a lot about, Villi, Fried Kitty, whether they're there, whether they're not, whatever it is. But Acrolaw is the consistent member on this team, always pulling out the big plays. And at the end of the game, he was the one that basically soloed that kill, the step kick, landing the meld into the restuns off that. It was just incredible play from him.
Yeah, that was all Acro. He set up the burst. Even when his mage couldn't actually connect to the target, he made sure that he had the interrupt. He had his he's so good at saving his cooldowns as well for the right moment. He saves his sprint for a rainy day. He sets up ahead of time. Okay, they don't have the Astral Shift. This has got to be the push, and he goes in, he gets it, he sets up the crowd control as well at the back of that kick. And we got to give Mimpoike credit as well, because Mimpoike, if he wasn't there to follow up with the Cyclone as well, easily would have just resulted in Z-Pi getting topped off by Looney, and then that was it. That was the all or nothing play. So nice teamwork there between the two, and of course that was the swing match. So now once again, if the series goes all the way to Game 5, Change My Mind are going to have that final map pick and compositional pick heading into that last game.
So obviously, at the start we had a lot of conversation going on, guys, about what should Wildcard Gaming do into the Rogue Mage Druid of Change My Mind. They chose Tolvaron here, so a very big map. Now we're going over to Dalaran Sewers. Do we want to see the Windwalker Death Knight here?
I think it depends. What is Change My Mind going to do? Are they going to lock in the Shadow Priest Rogue if they do that?
Let's imagine the Rogue Mage. So they get the Rogue Mage.
Well, we don't even. Yeah,
we don't have to imagine.
Imagine the Rogue Mage.
Reality.
It's a Rogue Mage. If Wildcard Gaming does not lock in Windwalker Death Knight, I'm really questioning some of the decisions being made here by some of these teams. I feel like this is the perfect map to set that up. I feel like compositionally it's better. I just think the Frost Mage Elemental Shaman, sure, it looked like they were winning the whole game, but it's just so risky later on. The Assassination Rogue, I mean, it's not unimaginable that the Rogue Mage Druid can stall out the game for a long period of time, and then eventually anything can happen with an Assassination Rogue, especially when it's Acro and he saves his cooldowns for the perfect moment. He can basically just solo a kill. So I think that was a really risky play by Wildcard Gaming. They tried to swing the map in their favor, but I don't remember the last time they played against Rogue Mage Druid as Windwalker Death Knight and lost. It just seems like a matchup they're very familiar with, they do a really good job with, and it just seems like that's just a win for them, and I don't get why they wouldn't use that.
Yeah, I mean, this might be the opportunity for them. Like you say, relying on Acrolors not killing you at like 40-50% dampening is a risky strategy, to say the best. This guy, I mean, for such a long time, we've said that he's kind of in the shadow of Waz, but last year he was fantastic. This year he's already starting out fantastic. This guy's like an absolute legend on the Rogue.
Would you say he stepped out of the shadow?
Stepped out of the shadow. He put a cloak on. He's some sort of cloak of shadows. But we've got Wildcard Gaming here. They have an opportunity to perhaps shut him down earlier in the game, go for a faster kill with this Windwalker Death Knight.
They're taking a really long time to think this through and lock it in. I mean, they had the advantage that entire last game. If Looney doesn't get interrupted, if he fake casts that, if he Cyclones Acro, stops all the damage, then perhaps they recover and then Fried Kitty dies. So they're probably taking that into consideration, but with where the location is on Dalaran Sewers and the composition that they know is coming their way, it just makes the most logical sense that they would play Windwalker Death Knight, bring in Blizzo. It's not like Blizzo is inexperienced. It's not like their team is inexperienced. They've been working on this Windwalker Death Knight setup for such a long time that it would be a blunder to not play it, and they are going to run it with the Mistweaver variant, so they can bring in the Serpent Jade statue that Venruki likes to talk about so frequently. The Serpent Jade statue.
It's pretty good.
Channeling Soothing Mist on the target that the Mistweaver channels it, so even if the Mistweaver gets crowd controlled, the statue continues healing the target and kind of carries the fight while the Mistweaver sits through crowd control, and this is the main advantage that the Restoration Druid does not bring, as the Restoration Druid's heal over time effects can be stolen from the enemy mage. The Jade statue's healing cannot.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good ability. That's why I always bring it up, because people don't know about it. I mean, it's just this little statue that sits there and puts a beam on someone and copies the Soothing Mist. But that in itself, it's a crazy amount of healing for the Mistweaver. I think it's like 20 to 30% of their healing in most games, especially games where they're getting crowd controlled a lot. So just passively healing you up is a big reason why I think Mistweavers are super good in these matchups.
Yeah, I remember I started playing some Mistweaver. I was actually talking to you about it because you've played it more, and I was like, so what do I do? What do I do? And then I was playing with Dilly at like 2-4 and 2. I was getting crowd controlled the entire game, and I was like, wow, 50% of my healing is this totem. I need to remember this thing. The statue definitely can carry these guys through against the Mage Druid. Crowd control here. That's why Looney is opting for the Mistweaver, but also the offense this healer provides can be really detrimental to, you know, sometimes it's really difficult to take down a Frost Mage since they slow everyone by 70% the majority of the game, but the CC, not only from the DPS but also from the healer, can be enough to kind of snowball it out of control.
Yeah, I mean, we see Looney very often push in, get the incapacitate, get the leg sweeps, and set up kills for his team. But there's a big downside as well for the Mistweaver, and that is that you don't have bear form. So Looney is going to have to do a great job avoiding the crowd control here, because whenever you pick a Mistweaver into a Resto Druid Frost Mage, it is a pretty bold statement. If you ever get counterspelled, that's an immediate cue for the Resto Druid and the Mage to kind of push forward and try to lock you down with crowd control. Small map like Dalaran Sewers, definitely good for that. So this map this pick could backfire. Typically we see it played the Windwalker DK with a Resto Druid. Of course, Resto Druid can also be punished by getting killed. So you kind of have to pick your poison there, Looney. It's going to be up to him now to avoid all of these crowd controls and make sure that he can keep Zipai and Blizzo alive.
Yep, Looney needs to be the wild card here. They face elimination if they lose this game on Dalaran Sewers. Then Wildcard Gaming will not be in the first grand final here, which would be hugely detrimental to these guys. You know, they need to catch Method Black on points to get that guaranteed BlizzCon spot in this season, and Change My Mind are causing ruckus.
Yep, Change My Mind causing a ruckus in the lower bracket, looking for a rematch against Method Black, which they got stomped earlier. So hopefully this warm-up on Rogue Mage, if they manage to make it all the way, could prove to be quite an entertaining grand final if they decide to mirror each other and decide who is the best Rogue Mage Druid of Europe in the Summer Cup #1. Of course, Wildcard Gaming, they want to be getting top first place finishes so they can pass Method Black on points, because right now North America has one spot at BlizzCon. If North America wins the next LAN, they will have, I believe, 3 spots, and Europe will only have 1, and that 1 spot will go to the top point earner, which is currently Method Black. So Wildcard Gaming have to outperform Method Black in basically every cup if they want to pass them on points and have that security to qualify to the World Finals.
Yeah, it looks like changed my mind. They're opting for the train the healer strategy. Fried Kitty and Poike are going to be looking to control up Zeepai and Blizzo as best as possible, while Acro creates some windows of opportunity onto Looney throughout the game. And if they can consistently do that, they can really limit the damage Blizzo and Zeepai have available. Fried Kitty now getting bursted down. And one thing we have to see from Change My Mind in this matchup is avoiding the ability Dark Simulacrum from Zeepai. Zeepai, with that ability, has an opportunity to steal spells from his opponent. If he takes a powerful spell like Cyclone or Polymorph, he's going to be able to use that on him and Poike and start generating a lot of pressure for his team. So a little mind game that Fried Kitty and Poike have to be very well aware of.
Looney being pressured early on. Change My Mind are definitely open to swapping to the healer, which is another vulnerability of the Mistweaver. Fried Kitty, though, taking quite a beating here from Blizzo, trying to blink to safety, using Frost Nova, Ice Nova to hold Blizzo in place so he cannot immediately reconnect, and then also Frost Nova immediately afterwards. I feel like Zeepai has not moved for some time, but will now be making his way towards Fried Kitty, and there will be nothing to stop his assault, and that means that they will engage crowd control on Poike. Change My Mind in the position. No, they can't avoid damage, so they are going to trade defensive cooldowns, the Temporal Shield, but overlapped with the Iron Bark. So this slight overlap is now an opportunity for Wildcard Gaming. They're waiting for another big push. They're waiting for Zeepai to get out of crowd control, which he now has. It's time to make a push with that opening. Because of that mistake, the Temporal and Iron Bark aren't available. This could be a good push for an Ice Block. Ice Barrier denying it for now. Fried Kitty gripped back into the fight. Zeepai wants to make his way back, but unable to. Fried Kitty using mobility during this attack, both of his shimmers, to avoid having to use an Ice Block, and it's all about denying the Ice Blocks from Wildcard Gaming, and he's doing that through the usage of Shimmer, Iron Bark, and Temporal, although making some mistakes. How do they decide to deal with this leg sweep? And Poike is going to use Iron Bark. Fried Kitty should not use Temporal Shield in this position so that he can use it on the next attack. This now allows them to be more aggressive, and they are going after Looney with that opportunity.
I think it's a really intelligent strategy. Honestly, as a Frost Mage, having Windwalker Monk and an Unholy Death Knight train you down, it really severely limits your opportunity to build up your damage with Frostbolt. So I like the idea that they're going after Looney instead and just putting as much control as possible on the Blizzo and Zeepai, because if those two classes, the Windwalker, the Unholy Death Knight, have high uptime, it's really difficult for Poike to deal with that. So just put control on them, try to attack the Looney as often as possible. The thing is, Looney's been doing a really good job in this matchup so far. He's been able to tank through a lot of the damage Acro has available. Of course, if we move into dampening, that becomes a little bit more difficult, limiting some of that passive healing Looney has with the Renewing Mist, with the Serpent Jade statue, and that's when his tree gets opened up and you can get interrupted on Soothing Mist. And Poike actually getting swapped to here. Nice job by Wildcard Gaming, sort of keeping Change My Mind guessing. I think they were getting a little bit too comfortable with this train Fried Kitty strategy. So I think finding those opportunities are going to be big.
Big attack on the Looney. Beautiful Cyclone from Poike, denying. You see all those glowing icons below Looney's health. Those are important cooldowns that keep him alive, but if he's cycloned, he can't gain any advantage of them. So Poike totally shut Looney down, now tossing out a Star Surge and trying to go for the kill. Zeepai was able to steal a Cyclone and use it on Acro to also try and save him. That is one of the key moves that kept Looney alive during this attack. He cannot afford to make a mistake like that again, especially deeper into dampening. That was almost their entire tournament over right there, and they need to place first. They need to beat Method Black. They have to pass them on points. Otherwise, they have no security to make it to BlizzCon.
Yeah, definitely an interesting moment for sure. Acro kitty shotting up Looney. Blizzo uses his Transcendence to get in line of sight using the grapple weapon onto Acro. This is an honor talent that I see Blizzo run more than any other Windwalker Monk. The ability to grapple weapon from your opponent, limiting their damage. It's a great way to slow down Acro, especially during those kidney shots onto Looney where he is the most vulnerable. So as long as Blizzo is on point with those grapple weapons, he can save Looney quite frequently. Poike was able to sneak away and recover his mana. We have just entered dampening at this point in the game. Have to see what they can get done. Blizzo and Zeepai, they've been sort of thrown for a loop. Normally, Windwalker Death Knight, they can just sit on the mage and it limit his damage and eventually you win, but they haven't been able to get anything from Fried Kitty at this point in the game. And because of that, they're going after different targets, but I think it's a mistake. Fried Kitty, you can see he's able to just free cast Frostbolts all of a sudden. He can load up his damage by building Icicles, building Fingers of Frost procs, as well as Brain Freeze procs, and if he can get out that damage, it makes it so difficult for Looney to heal through the Rogue powered with that Mage that's just free casting, and as a result, you can see Blizzo, he's in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, Blizzo is in a bit of trouble. That's mostly off the back of Looney's decision to not use Glaire's Medallion on blind. He anticipates that he's the target, so he wants to use his Glaire's Medallion on kidney shots with Vendetta. And then in this case, Blizzo has to use his own personal defensive cooldowns because Looney isn't healing him while he sat there blind. This now opens an opportunity for Change My Mind to kill Blizzo instead, so Looney has to be ready. He could be the target, Blizzo could be the target, and Change My Mind have that surprise at their disposal. How they utilize it could determine whether or not they find victory or not here on game number 4 in this series. It's match point for them, so the pressure is on.
Yeah, pressure is on. That's right. Blizzo charging forward. He's going to be doing a little bit of damage over on the Fried Kitty. They managed to slow down Minpoike's drink, and that's a win condition here for Wildcard Gaming. On this smaller map on Dalaran Sewers, it's a great opportunity to make sure Minpoike is not able to drink. Fried Kitty getting bursted down. Temporal Shield does bounce him back to full health. Kitty shot over on the Looney. Once again, Blizzo uses Transcendence. He uses the grapple weapon into Asphyxiate Stun. They're really trying to punish Acro for being behind the pillar, but Minpoike is in a great position with Iron Bark, with Innervate, to keep him alive with those very powerful Restoration Druid cooldowns. Now it's a Blizzo that's under fire, as Fried Kitty has been generating a lot of momentum for his team.
Yeah, he has been developing a lot of momentum for his team. Dampening kicks in, mana is even, cooldowns are even. It's still anyone's match. Wildcard Gaming can keep their tournament dreams alive, and they're making a big push. Fried Kitty could fall if he makes a mistake. Ice block is forced. One ice block out of the way. Now perhaps a slight advantage to Wildcard Gaming. Here's the decision that Looney needs to make. Does he use the Glaire's Medallion to get out of this crowd control and save Blizzo, or does he allow Blizzo to use personal defensive cooldowns? In this position, he's decided to let Blizzo use personal defensive cooldowns. He feels that he is more likely to die in the future, and whether or not that decision ends up being correct, we will find out momentarily. Can Blizzo outplay his opponents? He's going to have to make sure that his Transcendence is always out of line of sight, and he is able to use it whenever Looney is crowd controlled. He's going to have to be kiting as effectively as players like we saw yesterday, like Zach. If he makes even one mistake, and we have seen him make mistakes with that Transcendence where he portals nowhere, he will die. It looks like Wildcard Gaming, though, they're mixing it up. They are relentless in their assault to try and maybe get a kill here on Minpoike, but Fried Kitty was more than ready. Polymorphs lined up. Zeepai can't connect, and Minpoike recovers.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of going after the Frost Mage, is you limit those polymorphs and damage as much as possible when you're not on him and you're making these swaps on him in Minpoike and Acro. As long as Fried Kitty's ready, he can defend quite easily with polymorph and with Novas and Roots. So I think when they do go for those all-in setups on him in Minpoike, they need to be throwing out a paralysis on Fried Kitty, or a ranged interrupt like Mind Freeze to slow down some of those peels and allow their assault onto Minpoike to be a little bit longer lasting. Now Fried Kitty getting interrupted. Big burst damage once again. Temporal Shield looking to deny, but they did manage to get the Iron Bark and the Temporal Shield. Fried Kitty, both his shimmers. At this point, he's just a sitting duck. If we can see Blizzo get some uptime once again, Fried Kitty really can't go anywhere, and this is the moment they can get the second ice block. No Temporal Shield, no shimmer, no Iron Bark. Fried Kitty has to hold on somehow.
And not a lot of mana either. I mean, Wildcard Gaming, they're in a pretty good position right now to take this to a game number 5, but Change My Mind have the swing match advantage. They can pick the map. They know what comp's coming their way. So this entire series really rests with them and their ability to out-strategize their opponents should this go to game number 5, which it's looking like it will. Touch of Death about to explode, and it's going to be doing a huge hit here on the Fried Kitty. And Minpoike desperately trying to stabilize, but he is also being pressured. He's actually just dying to the Unholy Death Knight pet and off to the side. Change My Mind, they're desperate to kill Looney, but grapple weapon denies any damage from Acro. He can't stay on target. Looney is so healthy on mana and cooldowns at this point. But Minpoike, look where he is. He's in stealth. Zeepai's trying to get there to stop him, but why was the pet not on Minpoike? Did he shot melded it off? He got some mana, but really I don't think it's enough, but at least it's something.
Yeah, better than nothing still. Fried Kitty, no Temporal Shield, no Iron Bark. Blizzo, Zeepai, they're on target. Can they get the second ice block? A full Kitty shot on Looney. He could be in trouble. Ring of Peace gets dropped out by Blizzo to try to keep Looney alive. And Minpoike actually charges in and gets the diminishing return bash. I think that might have been a mistake. Now he's really scared. Asphyxiate into leg sweep. What is Minpoike going to do to get away? Does manage to escape, but that was definitely a risky play coming in from Minpoike.
Yeah, very risky play, although being up in the series, I think you can take risks, and if it pays off, you just advance to have a rematch against Method Black. If it doesn't, you go to game 5 where you have all the advantages. So I do think Change My Mind should take risks try and go for some all-ins. They've managed to set up a drink. How much mana can they get? I mean, if he ends up even getting... Oh, my goodness. Changed my mind. They've just kept their tournament dreams alive there with that drink here on Dalaran Sewers. That's going to open up a huge amount of extra time.
Nice setup.
Although, gripped into a double stun means an ice block, so there's no defense. They actually switched him in Poike as well. I love the swap. As soon as the mage is immune to damage and ice block, hit something else that isn't immune, put pressure onto 2 places. Minpoike then has to spend a lot more time recovering. Good reaction from Wildcard Gaming. But because Minpoike got a drink, I believe that he can heal this for some time, even though there are no ice blocks. They're going after Blizzo. They're trying to get that touch of karma before blind. Acro is actually marching over, kind of anticipating that Blizzo will run and also looking for blind. Looney still reluctant to use Gliders, now using it. So I do believe they're going to kill Looney in the near future. There's Vendetta available. Changed my mind. Can 100-0 Looney if they properly crowd control Z-Pi. Anti-magic zone's the only thing that could keep Looney alive, really.
Ooh, touch of death.
But here comes a big push. Iron Bark needs to be enough. Will it be is now the question. Touch of Death about to explode. It's a big hit. Dampening is very high. Blizzo in a bit of trouble at the same time. He's afraid. He actually portals away and abandons the kill on Fried Kitty. Now he's still low on health. Looney is crowd controlled. Touch of Karma. Blizzo's 1v1ing Acro in what could be the final seconds of the match. Acro goes for a Vanish play, setting up even more damage, but Looney's out of crowd control.
Acro could just die.
Acro doesn't. It's looking like we're going to a game 5. Minpoike gets it interrupted, and Acro loses the 1v1 behind the pillar. Wildcard Gaming tie it up.
Actually reminds me of a game on Friday where Acro went behind the pillar with Blizzo. Blizzo lost that one, but today he wins it, able to take down Acro and take us to game 5 here, Z.
Yeah, I feel like Acro overextended a little bit too much there when Blizzo went around the pillar. I feel like hitting the DK there isn't maybe the best target, but it's either that or maybe go for a re-stealth. He had evasion up in like 15, 20 seconds there at the end, so I feel like if he had waited for that, then he could have pushed in like that. Unfortunately, by pushing in behind that pillar, he forces Minpoike to go to the side there. And of course, when Minpoike has to go to the side there, that opens him up to getting paralyzed, to getting interrupted by Z-Pi, of course, who has a ranged interrupt. And I think that's the big misplay here, because after Minpoike got that drink, it really looked like Change My Mind were going to take this one. I like that they started going after Blizzo. I feel like going after Looney is just the wrong target, period. So going after Blizzo was nice, but here is the misplay. Acro goes in, gets a nice kick onto Looney, trinkets out of the stun, gets kind of baited here into a false sense of security because he still has his feints. There it comes out. His Gladiator Safeguard procs as well. There's the Vanish, and he tries to... Actually, I believe Looney used his Aura Mastery right there on that Garrote, and then of course Minpoike has to push in into melee range, immediately gets cross-kicked by Z-Pi, and that's it.
Yeah, it was really well played in the end. Wildcard Gaming kind of just, they stacked up, they stacked the deck, and they were able to pull through in that one. But the odds are still against them here as we go into game 5. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are here with a game 5 between Change My Mind and Wildcard Gaming. Winner of this, of course, goes through to that grand final to get the game against Method back, challenge them for the first Cup title of the summer season. Loser will end up with 3rd, which is still a reasonable result, but given how far these two teams have come, they're both going to be gunning for that top 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important, especially early on in the season, that you want to be making it to that grand final. And of course, Wildcard Gaming is going to be looking for that rematch against Method Black, something we saw time and time again in the spring finals. Change My Mind, of course, is going to be looking to change history here on Ruins of Lordaeron. It's actually Wildcard Gaming that chose Ruins of Lordaeron, I believe.
Well, it's Changed My Mind that chose this.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That choice.
Oh, you know what they're trying to set up?
Shadow Priest.
Oh, I thought they were going to go Shadow Priest, Holy Paladin. I was like, oh, they're going to go Shadow Priest, Rogue, Holy Paladin. That would have been amazing. But no, they're switching it up, and I just don't think this is the best matchup for them. I think Windwalker, Death Knight, Mistweaver, it's going to be looking good. I'm surprised to see that they didn't go with the Paladin, and this might be one of those times where it would have been better for them to have a 3-man roster, and they're forced into a situation.
Even Paladin, Shadow Priest, Rogue, if Fried Kitty doesn't play
that's
fire.
what we wanted to see.
I don't...
Oh, yeah, Paladin, Shadow Priest, Rogue.
He meant Paladin, Fire Mage.
Something,
right?
anything like that would have been better. I feel like the comp picks... Yeah, the comp picks from Change My Mind today have just been, in my opinion, wrong. I mean, they think that they're right, but in my opinion, I think they're wrong because they've lost. But...
I mean, it's easy for us.
I guess, yeah.
They're
chilling,
losing.
okay?
Our opinions are better, but
My
it
opinion
is something.
better.
But they have the opportunity to change their mind here. Like if they win this game, obviously it's good for them. But it does seem weird, right? Like surely even if they knew, that this would probably be the matchup they'd get, why wouldn't they just go with something bigger?
Didn't they beat Wildcard Gaming in that matchup on this map? I'm pretty sure. Or
I think so.
They did, yeah.
They did at the spring finals.
Yeah, at
right?
the spring finals. So it's like, Change My Mind has been one of these teams where we criticize them a lot during the spring cups, where they weren't really diversifying the different compositions that they ran, and then they finally found one that was working out well. And now it seems like they're still reluctant to sort of lock that in, maybe not having the most faith. I mean, in the past when we've seen this matchup play out, it's not good for the Rogue Mage. It just isn't.
We just saw it, right, on Dalaran.
They lost. It was a convincing loss. I mean, they had a few moments of opportunity on Looney and on Blizzo, but at the end of the day, there was always cooldowns that Wildcard Gaming had available. There was never a checkmate situation, and they ended up just slowly but surely losing the game. And I feel like on Ruins of Lordaeron, it's going to be a similar result, and I feel like Change My Mind may have made a mistake, but they might be able to prove me wrong, and they could certainly get a win. I mean, Rogue Mage Druid is such a well-rounded composition that they have a chance here, but I think they outpicked themselves.
Yep, they're putting all their eggs in the basket here on Game 5. This, of course, does decide who goes through to today's Grand Final for Europe. We've got North America coming up next, guys, after that Grand Final. But hey, Game 5, Changed My Mind. Look in the Rogue Mage Druid once again. They have every chance of making this work, Sid, but, I mean, the Windwalker Death Knight's been looking pretty good.
No matter what, Ruins of Lordaeron in Game 5 makes me happy because
this will be a fitting final resting place.
No? Well, Sid?
That wasn't what I was going to say. God.
What were you going to say?
You guys are just...
Go on.
No.
What were you going to say?
I don't want it. You guys are putting words in my mouth now. You're making this uncomfortable. Okay, it's serious game time. We're 5 seconds away from the last game in the lower bracket. Wildcard Gaming need first place finish after first place finish if they want to surpass Method Black on points and have security at the BlizzCon finals, because right now, Europe overall is going to be a lot more stressed as North America took the last LAN event.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Sid, it's very, very important here for Wildcard Gaming to try to catch up on points with Method Black, because Europe, they're just losing every single international LAN lately.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't argue with that.
We need to, I'm not happy you're bringing that up. You're just going to set these guys off again.
Yep, here we go. Looney into a kitty shot. Is he going to be taking too much damage? Blizzo once again, grapple weapon, going to look to deny. But Looney's not in the best situation right now. Acro's having a really difficult time reconnecting to his target. Chains of Ice, such a powerful snare. I mean, we talk about the Frost Mage snares quite a bit. Most of their snares are very powerful, 60%, 70%, but Chains of Ice for a Death Knight is absolutely insane. And you can see Acro right now trying to get on target, but Zeepai limiting his mobility with that Chains of Ice consistently in this matchup. It makes it so Acro can really only get uptime during the Shadow Step Kidney Shop windows.
Yeah, but even in that small window, he can net a kill for his team. They've got Vendetta. There's no Gladiator's Medallion. There's no Life Cocoon. And on Ruins of Lordaeron, you can totally get a kill on a healer, and I do think that's why I changed my mind. Went for this map. They want to kill Looney. Now, if Looney isn't ready for that, then maybe they just lose a series. They lose an opportunity to earn a lot of points and surpass Method Black, which have effectively been their rivals throughout the entire year. And then Method Black are just sitting comfortable. They've got the security. They've got the guaranteed spot on points. Wildcard Gaming, because of the difference between first and second, assuming that Method Black get top 2 every single time, it's only a 20-point difference. And right now, there's 20, 60 points difference right now between them, so it would take more than 3 cups of getting first and second for Wildcard Gaming to pass them. That's why it's so important for Wildcard Gaming to not lose here. They cannot afford to lose here.
And this is a question I actually have for Zico. If there's any, actually, quickly, Looney could actually be taking quite a bit of damage. He does manage to survive. The Growth Silence comes in as all 3 members sort of dogpile, who will survive off the back of that Life Cocoon. But I was going to ask you, Zico, if there's any healer in Europe that you would bet on living against Rogue Mage, who has a lot of practice, who would it be?
Healing stat, obviously.
Thank you.
Okay, healing stat. All right, that's competing in the AWC.
Second.
Looney.
Yeah, it would be Looney. I feel like Looney, if there's any healer we can count on to make sure he's effectively rotating through his cooldowns against a Rogue Mage in order to survive on the Mystery Monk, on the Restoration Druid. I mean, this guy has done it time after time, year after year. So I feel like Changed My Mind, they definitely have their work cut out for them in this particular matchup if their main strategy is just train down Looney.
So far, so good for Wildcard Gaming. They hold a lot of defensive cooldowns. They haven't been caught off guard, but nice drink from Minpoike. resetting his mana, realizing that was definitely not going in his favor, has now brought his team back into the fight as a result of that. Wildcard Gaming maybe dropping the ball or just unable to stop him. Interesting move here. Zeepai uses Dark Simulacrum to steal Polymorph from the Mage Fried Kitty, then use that Polymorph on Min Poike to stop him from healing, so then they can attack the Mage who is not being healed. Unfortunately, not enough damage to really get an Ice Block with that attempt. It is definitely unfortunate. Changed my mind now, changing gears, going after Looney once again.
Ooh, nice.
Burst him down, counter spell, interrupting Looney. He can't heal. He wants to go for the way of the Crane maybe, but then gets Cycloned at low health. And that is resetting the cooldown of Kidney Shot for Acro, which can stun a target. It is very effective against a healer, stopping them from healing when they are stunned. Looney needs to avoid Acro lulls at all costs. Acro is just Terminator style at the healer right now. If he connects with that Kidney Shot and Vendetta, it's likely that we'll see the Gliders Medallion, which then opens up potential to win with Blind instead later on. Although Acro has spent a lot of time running at the healer, he's overextended. And I mean, that's how they lost Dalaran as well. So he needs to be careful about choosing when to get overly aggressive.
This is really good positioning coming in from Looney. Not a lot of healers will use this little area, this little grave site, to just sort of maneuver and manipulate the enemy team, but all of those graves are out of line of sight. So if he can get behind them, it makes it really difficult for Fried Kitty to get off any sort of significant damage. And also, you're dragging Acro in a position where he's out of line of sight of Min Poike. So Min Poike, you can see he's positioned quite far away, but when Acro's chasing Looney, he's forcing Min Poike in to a closer range, and Acro's actually not able to get heals unless Min Poike gets right on top of him. So I think this positioning coming in from Wildcard Gaming is really, really intelligent, and it's allowing Zeepai and Blizzo to develop a lot of pressure in the matchup.
I also can't believe that you guys wouldn't have said that Botar is the best healer surviving Rogue Mage, considering Adrian got to experience that firsthand. Zeepai, although getting bursted down now in this position, has to trade out the Icebound Fortitude to stabilize, and even still is actually quite low on health. It's a bit surprising to see the Death Knight under so much pressure before we've entered Dampening, but he has now recovered. That could be an option for Change My Mind if they can maintain mana deeper into Dampening to kill the Death Knight. We've certainly seen that as an option in previous games.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just baffled at how long it took you to come up with that insult against Adrian.
He was so proud of himself. Yeah. He had a big smile on his face. The biggest smile.
Whoa! Fried Kitty getting bursted down. Temporal Shield bounces him back up. He's already used the Cold Snap. He's only got one Ice Block left. And Poike's mana is doing quite well, but Looney's doing way better in terms of mana management at this point. He's just having to heal himself up. He transcends this out of line of sight, connects a few heals, and now he's completely fine. If Fried Kitty wants to chase, he has to use Shimmers, and unfortunately, he gets himself in a really awkward situation. And Poike was able to sneak away just a little bit, but didn't have time to fully recover his mana in the game. Does top off Fried Kitty, but slowly but surely, Wildcard Gaming are developing a lead in terms of mana.
Yep, definitely a significant one. And Poike will need to retreat off and drink. Looks like he's trying to do that right now. So Wildcard Gaming, what are you going to do while Min Poike drinks? I guess you're just going to kill the rogue. I mean, that's a perfectly viable option. Acrolol has to respect that push, use Evasion, Cloak of Shadows to survive, and now he'll be vulnerable. Fried Kitty's already down one Ice Block, so they trade to get full mana on important and essentially vital cooldowns to stay alive through burst damage, which will then prevent Acrolol from being as aggressive as he would like to be in the future. So I am curious if Wildcard Gaming can see that opportunity, seize that opportunity, and punish moving forward, because otherwise, Min Poike is doing a great job on his mana management.
Yeah, it certainly is, but the thing is, we saw in the last game, even though Min Poike was able to recover his mana, guess what? Windwalker Death Knight, they do a lot of damage. They can just flat out win the game, even when the Wrestler Druid does have mana. So this is a very scary composition to go against. Zeepai actually getting swapped to, and I think this is going to be smart. If Change My Mind can stall out the game a little bit longer, they go after Zeepai at later stages of Dampening. Early on, the Unholy Death Knight with Death Strike has a lot of self-healing, but that severely gets limited later on, and they do manage to force out the Life Cocoon on Zeepai. Poike being caught into a leg sweep, Acro running away as he realizes he's in a bit of danger. He's got no evasion, no vanish, no trinket, no nothing, and without cooldowns on a rogue, you're a very squishy target. If Blizzo and Zeepai can land a full stun on him with any sort of crowd control in Poike, he could definitely be a vulnerable target once again.
Change My Mind have been on a tear. They've been taking games off teams that they were 0-18 against or 0-15 against in the spring season. They've definitely improved, but here it's still an even ball game. Anyone could take it, and it's game 5. The loser is going home in 3rd place. Change My Mind are already so far behind on overall points in the standings that perhaps if they got first place every single time and Method Black had a terrible performance throughout some of these cups, they could pass them. Although I feel like the situation is not possible. Change My Mind, I think, are relying mostly on qualifying through winning the summer finals at this point in the year in terms of their point standings. But to guarantee a qualification there, they need some top performances. So finding a win here against Wildcard Gaming, having a rematch against Method Black would help their odds. That Ring of Peace, did it Hitman Poike? Not sure. It looks like they're going to have to trade an Ice Block for mana.
That's a big deal.
But now Acro is getting swapped too. If he has to use Evasion on top of an Ice Block, 2 members will be in danger moving forward, and Wildcard Gaming could just overwhelm Change My Mind. This is, I would say, now in favor of Wildcard Gaming heavily.
Yeah, definitely. Acro, Gladiator Safeguard does end up proccing with the Feint. Zeepai a little bit of a vulnerable target. And of course, Minpoike was able to recover some mana, but that was at the cost of a nice block from Fried Kitty. He has Cold Snap coming up in around 40 seconds. He'll be safe once again once that cooldown is up. But Blizzo and Zeepai, they're going to be looking to generate some pressure. Zeepai marching forward, trying to roll some damage on Fried Kitty. There's an opportunity. If they can get the Iron Bark out, it's going to be massive. Temporal Shield, Iron Bark, overlap. Now there's a short window where Touch of Death is available for Blizzo. And Fried Kitty, he doesn't have the Cold Snap for 20 seconds. They can make an all-in push right here, right now. Ring of Peace knocks Fried Kitty back into Zeepai, back into Blizzo. Life Sweep gets traded out. Blizzo, why are you not using Touch of Death? This is the perfect moment. This is literally the perfect moment. They could have taken him down, but Cold Snap will ultimately roll back up in 5 seconds. And I think Fried Kitty is going to be able to hold on.
Opportunity missed and whiffed for Wildcard Gaming. Touch of Death, the strongest attack in Wildcard Gaming's arsenal. There was a moment of opportunity where Change My Mind had no defenses for it, and they didn't activate it. So now Fried Kitty does have defense for it. Acro does have defense for it. So unlikely that it will find a kill, and likely that this game will continue on. Although if Minpoike can get mana, Zeepai certainly becomes an option to kill. Perhaps Change My Mind should look to soften him up, get through some of the cooldowns now, so that when dampening is higher, he is as vulnerable as possible. And Poike, he's done it. He has full mana. This is exactly what he needs to be able to find a kill on the Death Knight. I mean, to find a kill on anyone, but the Death Knight does become increasingly more tasty because his mobility is limited, and then when Death Strike is not so effective, he can't run away, he can't Death Strike, pretty much just dies. So at 40% dampening, that is going to be the magic marker for Change My Mind, and they have everything. They have Evasion still, they have one more Ice Block, they've got Iron Bark, and they've got full mana. This is looking solid for Change My Mind.
Full sap onto Looney. They move forward. Frozen Orb gets dropped out. Blizzo trying to back him up. Grapple weapon over onto Acro. Paralysis, Incapacitate on Fried Kitty, and he completely shuts down that attempt on Zeepai. Zeepai does manage to hold on, but Looney actually traded out the Life Cocoon. He throws out the Life Cocoon. He's actually going down for a drink. So preemptively activating that damage reduction, that healing, or that big damage absorption effect, and allows him to recover his mana completely. Very heads-up play by Looney.
All right, Looney. Both healers are at full mana, and we are getting to the chaos zone of dampening. It's game number 5. Anybody could take it at this point. One mistake is going to cost you the tournament. You're going to be going home in 3rd. And of these 3 teams, they are the top point earners of the entire year. Change My Mind in 3rd, Wildcard Gaming in 2nd. So there's a lot on the line in terms of potential qualifications to not only the Summer Finals, but BlizzCon and the World Finals as well. There is good pressure right now from Change My Mind on the 2 targets as they continue battling it out now out in the open. I would say this positioning favors the Rogue Mage, so perhaps Wildcard Gaming should reposition. Zeepai, he's going back and forth between the Tombstones, now pushing out towards Acro. Beautiful Dark Simulacrum on Cyclone. And Poike is now Cyclone, he can't heal, and it's his own Cyclone that he's sitting through. This one mistake could cost them the series, as Acro Lulz is so low on health, dampening is so high. If Minpoike is even interrupted on one heal, it could easily be the end of the game. Cloak of Shadows available. Minpoike recovering, trying to fake cast, doesn't want to get interrupted by any sort of crowd control or interrupts. Zeepai retreats back to the pillar, realizing that the kill is now lost, perhaps trying to wait for a kill later on. Minpoike jumps in for crowd control, but gets deflected away by Zeepai. Good defense there on his part to break up the crowd control, but now Minpoike is poking closer. Fried Kitty's on one side, Minpoike on the other. They grab Minpoike in. Are they going for the swap? Are they going for the 1-2 punch on the healer? Maybe they just kill 2 targets at the same time. This damage could be overwhelming at now 45% dampening. Acro, what are you going to do? Cloak of Shadows on such low health. Minpoike somehow, some way, keeping the team alive. It is his drinks, his mana management that have finally gotten them to this point in dampening where they have an opportunity to kill, I would say, either Looney or Zeepai. Change my mind, just need to execute it out. They need to get the damage onto Zeepai as soon as possible, but they're falling behind. There's no answer. Blizzo's Touch of Death is about to explode. It hits Acro hard. A stolen polymorph on Minpoike, once again from Zeepai, could be the game-winning factor. 2 members at critical mass in terms of health. Acro needs most of the triage, though, as Fried Kitty has ice blocks. Minpoike knows that and allocated all of his biggest heals to Acro instead, and Fried Kitty is focused on avoiding damage while Minpoike tries to set up heals for him as well. And momentum is so far in favor now of Wildcard Gaming that I'm almost feeling that they should be able to walk away with it. Looney moves in. This is surely an ice block, and they will get it. They can now switch to Acro, start crunching away at another member of the team. They still haven't got the vital cooldown anti-magic zone or anti-magic shield, and Wildcard Gaming are looking solid to make it to the grand finals.
Yeah, they're looking good. Leg sweep on Fried Kitty. He trinkets out. Ironbark looking to deny the kill. Fried Kitty has to hold on a little bit longer. They turn their attention over onto Acro. Luna gets caught into a full polymorph, and now Zeepai's in trouble. He has the anti-magic shell. They shred through it. 52% dampening. He's got no self-healing. Looney has to start finding some heals. Anti-magic zone gets used. Bash coming in from Minpoike. Great crowd control. Looney still in trouble. Life Cocoon gets used. Full stun now over onto Acro. Fried Kitty trying to do as much crowd control as possible. Manages to find a polymorph onto Looney. Do they have the damage to take down Zeepai? Full bind on Looney. He's trying to stay alive. Acro's also low in the meantime. This could be a cross kill. I don't know if Zeepai's going to be able to hold on.
Yes.
Nice counterspell by Fried Kitty. Zeepai, I don't think you're getting out of this one. And ultimately Change My Mind in a beautiful game managed to hold on and send Wildcard Gaming straight out of the tournament.
All it took was a mild 56% dampening there from Change My Mind, but they find the drinks, they find the kill, and for the first time, I believe, in the entirety of the year, Change My Mind qualify for the grand final in this cup.
This is indeed the first time they qualify for the grand finals, where they will be facing off Method Black in a rematch. Could be potential RMD mirrors, could be Shadow Priest Rogue versus RMD. Who knows what these guys have in store for us. One thing is for sure though, this was a nail biter, going all the way to 56% or so dampening. And honestly, it's not often that I criticize Looney. Barely ever happens, but at the end of this one, Looney got way too hungry for the kill because he activated his Way of the Crane when he had no mana whatsoever. And of course, Way of the Crane is an ability you can use when you are counterspelled, which means that as a monk, you can tank a counterspell, and then you can just activate your Way of the Crane, and you can go in and get a bunch of healing. What he did is, you're gonna see exactly right there. Way of the Crane activated. He is not on Polymorph Diminishing Return. Fried Kitty realizes immediately.
Oh, wow.
Polymorphs him on the Way of the Crane. This is a massive misplay on Looney's part, because now his Way of the Crane barely gets any value whatsoever. He doesn't have his Thunder Focus T, which means that he has to fake cast the Interrupt, and Fried Kitty at this amount of dampening can just safely hold on to his counterspell for as long as he needs. That Life Cocoon is not going to be doing too much work. Fried Kitty just waiting. There's the Thunder Focus T. It's not going to be enough. There's a Maledict as well, soaking some of that healing up. And there it is. Boom. Immediate counterspell from Fried Kitty. Here would be a prime opportunity to use that Way of the Crane and potentially heal up Zeepai, because it is the most effective healing you have as a monk, the biggest burst healing you have this late into dampening. Not going to be available. Instead, he gets fully locked out and Zeepai goes down.
Yeah, that was a big goof from Looney. Rare that we see that from him. Also at the end there, he put the anti-magic zone down, and then Fried Kitty blinked out of it. They tried to trap him with the Ring of Peace, but then when he got gripped back by Zeepai, the Ring of Peace actually knocked him back away again from the anti-magic zone. So they had so many cooldowns, and they just kind of threw them away a little bit at the end there, which is obviously a shame for Wildcard Gaming, given the points going into BlizzCon. Like, these guys, you know, we were saying there's a 60-point gap between them and Method Black right now. Now, since they can't even make it to the grand finals, that's at least 80 points, and if Method Black wins the grand finals, which, you know, looking at the bracket looks quite likely, then that would be a 100-point gap